Welcome to another episode of the Tough Stuff Podcast.
Be sure to like, love, share, or subscribe wherever you may be watching or listening, because we believe God wants to bring encouragement and hope through these stories.
What's up, friends? We're here for episode 8, and I'm here with my good friend, Manda Guidry. Manda, how long have we known each other?
Since
2011 or 12?
11, I started going to church. 12, started school of ministry.
Wow, so over 10 years. That's crazy to think about. So I'm here with my good friend, Manda, and she has quite a story. I think it will encourage you guys. Manda, why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us, where you grew up and all of that.
Yeah, so background, grew up in Houma for the most part. I'm a Bayou girl.
Bayou girl.
Yeah, if you ask my son, he would be like, no, you're a city girl. But yeah, I grew up down the Bayou for the most part. I say that because I did move around a lot. But we are Native American, which is, we still hear a lot that, oh, wait, y'all still exist? And it's like, yeah, we're real,
We're real. Well, I feel like
that.
down here, a lot of people, claim that they have Native American in their DNA, but they're really not Native American. I'm talking to my sister. Yeah, she loves to claim that side of her, but that's not much. But you are like a true Native American from a tribe, okay, in Houma.
Yes.
Okay.
United Houma Nation.
United Houma Nation. Okay.
That was something actually that we didn't learn about until we were a little bit older.
Oh, okay.
So because a lot of people, most people don't know is that like natives are still fighting for freedoms.
Wow.
Right. So I'm still in like first generation, second generation, and third generation of breaking through some things.
Wow.
And that's what a lot of people's like, oh no, okay, so history books are not accurate.
Wow.
But like my mom is in first generation being able to go to college.
Wow.
And so like I'm in second generation of that, like being able to say, hey, we got college education.
Wow.
But like even, like her older brothers and stuff were not even allowed to go past 7th or 8th grade.
Wow.
Like this is how recent it is. It's like in this, years,
Wow. What is it like growing up in a tribe?
So, so we were a little bit older because like mom and them going to school, they had to identify as white to go to the good schools. Like we couldn't even be identified as Native Americans.
Wow.
So being able to, we were a little bit older when we were able to, because my mom and them were denied it. And so she's like, no, my kids are going to know where they come from. And so we were a bit older, and I say that it's maybe teenage years before we really got to like learn about where we're from and our ways and stuff like that. Because it's like we were separated from a lot of, our family and, traditional ways and stuff like that. But being able to learn about my background at an older age, it really sparked me to take interest in learning about cultures. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
That's a lot of culture.
Like you don't realize what you get from like your upbringing, like what your roots. And like, I love learning about different cultures, because if we sit back and look to see strengths and weaknesses that come from different cultures, and like how, if we add that into if we bring that to the world, like how well we would operate together. But it's always,
we won't get into
it's
that.
always, But
that's awesome.
Saying that, like, the significance in that is like growing up, there was still those like those mindsets being passed down, traditional things, but like women being housewives. And it was like, I heard that growing up, like you had to, women, you find you a good husband and make some babies, take care of the house, serve your husband, and I remember like growing up and thinking like, nah, man, like that's just, I'm not built for that. Like, just thinking like there's gotta be something more. And then we were always fussed at to get out the kitchen. So how am I supposed to learn how to cook if I can't be in the kitchen? But yeah, so growing up like that, being told that, that's like as a girl, you're right, like that's your purpose. That's what's spoken into you. That's your purpose. And and I'll say that a lot, traditional, but like knowing Native Americans, bunch of different tribes, and they still very much operate in different ways. And I know like the tribe that I come from were more peacekeepers and warriors. And so I also found out how most people claim, they great great grandma Cherokee princess. I actually had I come from a line of female chiefs.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
like, that's
That
why,
kind of makes sense to me. It really does.
because it's like I do
I feel
I
like
have
you embody that authority.
so it's stuff like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's where I get it from. Like it's
Yeah,
something in my
that
bloodline. So
is
it's something
crazy.
to respect about where you come from and understand how your makeup is the way it is, but also knowing like God has more for you. So you
Yeah.
can't allow it to box you
Yeah,
in. And
don't
that's what a
stay in that
lot of
box.
a lot of people don't get it. They're like, oh, this is how I was raised or this is what I was taught. And it's like, no, but God got more for you.
Yeah.
Like you have these tools to equip you in different ways, but it's it was eye-opening to learn a lot of the things and be able to
Wow.
understand, like even with taking care of my health, a lot of, so like tracing back to different bloodlines, I'm able to see how like I think some things are like I really like natural remedies. I don't like medicines and stuff. Saying that as a ex-drug addict, I really prefer, like I don't even like taking Tylenol,
Yeah.
but it's like because that's even something for me. I'm always looking for a natural remedy. Well, one of my bloodlines comes from that, like being
Wow.
able to like use the plants and
Wow.
to be able to
That's
heal
so
your body
cool.
and take care of your body. Like
It's cool
it's cool.
how like generationally things are passed down even though you don't know about them. Like your tendencies and your, opinions on things and all
Yeah.
that was like it's like a part of you that you didn't know came from that until much later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, you're somebody who I met in school at Healing Place School of Ministry. And it's funny you say that about the female chief because you've always embodied like this like warrior authority woman that it's like, don't mess with me. I'm in charge. And I've always respected that about you because it's like this level of confidence that you just wear that is natural. And you probably would say that you don't have that.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
like crazy like that you said that because I think it really is like a part of you. And while you may not feel it all the time, you are like that is you. And so that's really cool. You're somebody that I've always admired in that realm because I'm a very I don't know if you know this about me. I'm very timid and like very just I'm not very bold. I think God's doing a work in that realm. I'm trying to become, have more authority or be more bold. But you're somebody that I've looked up to in that realm because it's like you wear it so naturally.
Yeah.
So it's interesting knowing that that's where that comes from. But on today's episode, I want to get into your story because when I think of people that I know who've been through some really tough stuff, podcast name plug. This is why we created this podcast because I feel like so many people go through tough stuff and they don't look like it.
Yeah.
Like you would never know that you have gone through the things that you've gone through. In fact, I did not know that you went through what you went through until we had lunch the other day. Like I knew bits and pieces of your story, but I didn't know how tough it got. And that just speaks to the resilience in you that you have pushed through for so long. And God has really taken you to a place of healing that you embody. And
Yeah.
so, anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead. Talk to us about, kind of what we shared about the other day. Like, tell us about your story.
Yeah. So the easier part of my story is to talk about how, the Lord had came snatch me up from the drugs and everything. But being able to go back and see like where it came from with the the childhood abuse that led into, the relationship that was abusive, and just having my son and then trying to navigate with that. And so I would say, looking like, it's a lot easier to talk about all the other stuff, but like the heart in it is, my journey with Jules, and I can really look and see like how God's done so much in that. Being able to, like, it's like, of course, journey. It's been years, but he's 19 now.
Yes.
Um,
And you were how old when you had him?
I was 17. I was 17. I was trying to think on the way over here, actually, I was like, how did I even think that I was pregnant? And it was actually somebody had, was passing down. Like, I remember she was driving down the street and she was like, backed up. And she's like, man, are you pregnant? And I'm like, no, I had some words for her. And I was like, get out of here. Like, I'm saying that. And I was living with his dad at the time. Now, okay, I'm gonna back up a little bit.
Back it up.
Back it up. So I met his dad at 14. I was 14.
Okay.
Hanging out at the mall. Met him. He was friends with my brother. And we really, like, me and my brother were really close. Like, my siblings, you go through a lot, you get close. So me and my brother were really close. I was fussing at him because he was trying to fight somebody in the mall, whatever. That's where I meet Jules' dad. And so we hit off. It was cool. We were young, enjoying each other, whatever. And then at 16, I moved in with him because a lot of my childhood was back and forth all over, living with this person, that person, hotel, aunt, uncle, and at that time we was living with an uncle. And so he lived in the same neighborhood with us. And so it was like, well, at least I can be in one school, whatever, moved in with him. 16. We got engaged. The Christmas,
16.
I remember because, that's what you do. You growing up, you got to be a housewife, get your husband, that's literally, I'm doing what I'm supposed, my purpose, right?
Yeah.
Or at least what they ingrain in you.
What you thought?
Your purpose. So yeah, he proposed on Christmas. I made 17 right after, my birthday's after Christmas. And then it was like the next month around his birthday that we found out I was pregnant.
Wow.
So I was 17 when I found out. And crazy, I said yes to this man, that I would marry him. But when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, what am I doing? What am I, like, that's when reality hit.
You're like,
it's
I'll marry you.
Wait, hold up. You have kids? Like, I didn't even live. Like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, I really thought like that was it.
Yeah,
That was it.
yeah.
And in a way it kind of was, because that took my life like down the track it is still even to this day, right? Because
Wow.
having a kid is for life.
Yeah.
Not till they turn 18 is for life.
Right. Yeah.
And so what it was after that, like the pregnancy, had a great pregnancy. Like, and that's why I tell people I make fun, because I was like, no, why mess up a good thing? I had a great pregnancy, great delivery, everything. But he was only a few months old when I left his dad. And this, I must say a few months because it's less than 4 months.
Okay.
So I remember, like, he started getting really possessive, because it was fun while we were young and, cutting up, hanging out at the mall, going to the movies, partying, stuff like that. It was all fun. But then it was like life got real. Had a kid, and then he started getting possessive and controlling. And so, like, fresh out of having a baby, I remember we had gotten an accident. I was driving big old Grand Marquis. Wet roads, try to hit the brakes, and we end up spinning out control because, there's a big body, old school, they heavy. Like, so we go into the ditch, and he shows up, and because I think we call him, because down the bayou, you don't call a tow truck, you ain't got time for a tow truck. You call somebody that got a big truck with a pull strap, come get you out. So he comes, he shows up, grabs Jules, and now they're babies. And I say they because my niece was a week younger than him. And it was me and Katie, and we had our babies. We was headed to the community center or something. We were going somewhere down the bay. And so he shows up, and he not even check on me and everything. He goes to the car, he grabs the car seat out with Jules in it and gives it to his mom. He's holding me back, and I'm like, freaking, like, what is going on? We just kind of like, like, he's, holding me back. She's trying to hurry up and get in the truck with him. And he's hollering and cursing. And I don't even remember, like, it was like, oh my God, like, what is going on? So he's holding me to where I can't get to Jules while his mom is putting him in the truck. And then she gets in, locks the doors. He goes around, hops in, and I'm banging on the window. And I'm like, give me my son. Like, freaking out. What is going on? I couldn't leave because we still had to wait for the cop to get there, check everything. Because we wasn't the only ones that went in the ditch. It was like a few cars slammed on their brake. Nobody hit, but we all like ended up all over. Yeah. So whenever the cop came, we talked with him and I told him what was going on. And he was like, and I told him like, no, my son's dad came grab him and, put him in the truck, took off because he saw I was all marked up. And he was like, did you get hit somewhere? And I was like, no, like he did that from holding me back because man, taking my baby, like, what is going on? Like, and there was no, like, I had no indication of anything going wrong or what, other than like his behavior kind of changed some, with the way he was towards me, with the whole possessive or control, like not wanting me to go anywhere, dude. So I thought he was mad because we were going down to buy it and he didn't want me to take his son down to buy it. And so I didn't know what was going on. So we go back to my mom's house and the cop was like, well, we can do, you can file a temporary restraining order because he put his hands on you. You have marks, you have evidence or whatever. We can go get your son kind of deal. And I was like, all right, whatever. Like, yeah. So they go. My mom lived on the street over. This is how bad, y'all. It's so small town. This is how bad. So he was on this street. My mom's on this street. Like, So the cop went down to the next street and trying to tell him, like, he was still being breastfed. Like, we didn't even have formula for him. And so, like, the cop literally had to go and try to reason with him to let me take Jules. Like, what is going on? Everything's fine or whatever. And so he ended up letting him come, but didn't want to give the car seat. And the cop was like, this is your child, like trying to make him understand, like, this is your child. Like, why wouldn't you want your child to be in the car seat? And he's like, well, if she want a car seat for him, she got to pay for it. And the cop was just like, are you serious? Like, this is your child who you're claiming you need to protect. Like, why? But you're not letting the car seat go. Like, he was trying to make him understand. So finally he lets the car, like, I'm telling you, it was ridiculous. But it was like, that was just the start. Like, I should have like been like, because there was no indication of why he would have even did that, why that happened. Like, we were fine. We were living together still, and it was like, what is this? Like, what is happening? And so I get him, and that was with the next few months, it was my sister's baby daddy had committed suicide.
Wow.
And so having to walk through that. Now, at this point, the kids are 4 years old. I say that because they really were like twins. Like, I had Jules, she had Yana, and they were a week apart almost to the minute. And so I'm like, they were 4 months old when that happened. And I remember being at the hospital and like thinking like, oh my gosh, like my niece is going to have to grow up without a dad.
Wow.
I know what that's like. And so, I mean, I had a stepdad, but that raised us very abusive. And so, but I never had my biological dad there for me. And so I remember that I was like, she's going to have to grow up without a dad. Like, man, that's just me being selfish. Like, I don't know what happened with all that with him. And so like we talked about, because he showed up, that was one of his friends too. And so he's at the hospital too. We there with the family. And it was just like, you know what, we got to figure out how to make this work. Because our kid doesn't deserve to be in a broken home because whatever's happening with us. Yeah. They're 4 months old. And so we get back together, and it didn't take long. After that, it was even worse, like how he was, but I couldn't go anywhere. Like, his mom had to drive me places, and it was just like keeping eyes on me at all times and like choking me out. Like, that's how it felt, like just being smothered. And it was like having to answer to him and like getting okay with him. And I don't know what stirred that up, right? Or maybe it was like, okay, now, no. And it was like, okay, now your true colors are starting to show, And so, so back and forth with him, with the trying to tell me what to do, what I can do, where I can go, where I can't go. And it was just like, I can't do this. Like, that's when I left, and it was, I'm done with this. I think Jules was probably about 2, maybe. It was like, no, I'm I'm not doing this. Like, this ain't, it's not peace. Like, what point is it for us to be together if it's just going to be fighting and bickering all the time?
Like, is that more damaging to him than
Then, yeah.
if we were separated? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I end up leaving. I was like, no, because it doesn't take long for me to figure out if it's like, even like friendships, not just relationship, friendships too. It's like, yeah, this is not beneficial. And so I'm like, part ways, and I'm okay with it. And so when I left him that time, I knew that was like, no, that you're not somebody I could be with. I can't see myself spending my life with you because of how he was. And then it was like he started to show the colors of his family, because his family is, well, his mom's side of the family, like, they're well known down the bayou. Like, you don't mess with them. There's some very violent, aggressive bullies, just being honest. Like, and they wear that with pride. So I say that, they would hear this, they would probably be like, yeah, we just tear it up. Like, they wear it with pride, but very, very abusive. And so I'm like, well, maybe he's just showing his colors, that's what's in his blood, So when I left him that time, like, I knew I was done. That was it. I was like, this ain't going to work. So I already started like trying to figure out, how am I going to do this, And then we had made it work where it was like, because we got temporary paperwork, temporary custody, an agreement visitation. He would go with his dad for a week, with me for a week. And then I got word that after a few months of this, I got word that he's wanting to take me to court to fight for full custody. Because he really saw that I was not coming back to him. And so he tried different ways. He tried to get other girls to try to make me jealous. And I was like, nah, I'm not, that's not for me, but not that I was all innocent. I knew that if I wanted him back, I can get him back. So a few times, like, I was like, oh, you think she was supposed to make me jealous? Now watch.
Yeah.
And he would come home with me.
You playing the game.
You were like, hold up. Let me show you who's still in control. You think you're in control? Nah.
You had the woman chief vibes working.
Yeah, I did. I pulled them out.
They were in your back pocket.
But it was back, because it was like, that's the only way that I had any kind of control, is if I would say, yes, he would come.
Yes.
But other than that, it was like, I knew what that meant, being in a relationship with him. It would flip. And so he never was physical with me. I could probably count on 2 times, but it was never like hitting me, more like, but holding me down. And so he was about 3 or almost 4 when I found out he was wanting to take me back to court, because he did all that. They like to play in the courts and all this, and I'm always like, nah. So I got back with him only because I didn't want to have to go to court.
Wow.
And it was so bad. By that time, I was already, like, we were partying so much. I was smoking weed. And in order for me to even deal with him, like to go home to him, like, he already knew he had my little plate. When I get home, he had my weed, he had my papers, and I was like, don't even talk to me. I got to roll up before I can even function.
Yeah.
And then that didn't last long at all. Because it was like, no, this is dumb. If we got to go to court, we got to go to court.
Yeah.
I can't, like, it just made me sick, like, to be in that environment and to think, like, this is what I had to live with, And
if
it was
I have
crazy.
to do this much in order to be okay.
Yeah. I'm like, it ain't
for me.
But it was like growing up in abusive, like, all relationships I knew around me were abusive. So I was like, well, at least he's not hitting on me. At least he's not cheating on me.
It's almost like that was familiar to you.
Yeah.
So sometimes the unfortunate thing is that things that are familiar, even if they're bad, are almost better in like the trauma mind than things that are not like negative,
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because you're like, this is familiar. So it's like
I knew it.
It's normal. Like, it's familiar, so I can handle it.
Yeah.
But what would be unknown would be somebody that wasn't like that.
Yeah.
And that would probably be more scary in that situation.
Because most of them do. Like, even now, most of them do. They'll just stay in it. And it's like, and I remember I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not meant to be married if this is what I got to deal with. This is not what I never was one of those little girls that dreamed about her wedding and stuff like that, because, like, it was a joke to me. Like, it's abusive, it's neglect, it's just very violent. And so I never
Relationships
was.
equal all of these things.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I remember that when I left him that time, that's when I was like, well, maybe relationships are not for me. Like, that's, it's not cut out for it.
Yeah.
Not the wife, the
Problem
whole.
is me. Yeah.
And so I was okay with going to court and dealing with all that. And he spiraled. I remember he had ended up shooting himself. He called me, oh, you don't want to be with me. I don't want to live, all this and that. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. So he calls my friend, who I was roommates with at the time, and calls her and her boyfriend and let them know, like, oh, Amanda don't want to be with me. I'm just going to end it all, da, 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 da. Well, he ends up shooting himself
Wow.
in the arm.
Oh, my gosh.
And let me tell you, that made me so mad because now the kids are about 4.
Yeah.
And just 4 years ago, my niece really lost her dad to that because he really was mental and he shot himself.
Yeah.
And he's over here doing this because
He wants attention.
He wants attention. He thinks this is going to bring me back to him. And I'm like, no, you freaking crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. This is crazy. Yeah.
Like, you proving my point. And I remember showing up at the hospital after, and I'm so annoyed,
Yeah.
but it was like, you got to go check on him, whatever. So I show up, find out that he told the cop he picked up a hitchhiker and the hitchhiker shot him. And I was like, what? No, he called me and told me, and like not thinking, oh, they're going to lock him up for the what it is, 48-hour hold or something. Not thinking about that. And so I'm like, no, he called me and told me like he was going to shoot himself. I mean, he was going to kill himself if I don't come back to him. And the cop's like, okay, this is new information. That's not what he said. And so he's trying to figure out what to do. Is it just me against him kind of deal? Well, my girl shows up and her boy, and then they vouch the same, like, how was he doing? Like, why would he do something like this? And so the cop talks to them too. They had the same story. They were actually on the phone with him when he shot himself. And so they were like, no, and he tossed the gun in whatever bayou or, it was in whatever. And the cop was like, oh, okay. So they end up shipping him to the hospital, and had him locked up or whatever. And so I'm literally contemplating, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do with this? Like, this man really is crazy. Like, if you that crazy to try to harm yourself to be with somebody, I'm like, dude, no, you're crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I was like, I couldn't stay, like I couldn't be in that environment. And I remember, like I went back just because it was a lot going on. So I went back to his mom's with Jules to try to figure out what was going on with him and with Shelton. Try to figure out what's going to happen with that, what that's going to look like. And none of this in my head, I'm like, not trying to use any of this to like take custody, because I never I've always told him where I was pregnant, like, you always going to be a part of your son's life. That was never something that I thought about doing or trying to do, because he did that. I knew like, no, you need help.
Yeah.
You
didn't want to take it away from him.
And so I was like, all right. I remember we end up sending Jules to my mom's because my mom had moved up here by that time. Sending him up here and then waiting for Shelton to come out the hospital. So when he comes out, it's maybe the second day he's out, he is sitting on the front steps talking to his cousin, letting his cousin know how, he messed up. He might have shot himself doing something stupid, but, he know where they got acid tanks at that he can get rid of a body if he needs to.
Oh,
And if
God.
somebody's going to keep playing with him or playing with his name and try to make him look crazy, he's going to show him crazy. And they won't be able to find him anymore. Like, he's saying all this, and I'm just like, nah. You really are crazy. You're crazy enough to shoot yourself, then you may be, And so I called my mama and I just told her, I was like, Mom, he's just talking about his cousin. Like, I knew he worked on these, like, he used to get in the boat and go check these tanks and stuff. Like, that was his job. And so, like, I knew he had access to that. I knew what he could do. I knew, like,
So you're like, at this point,
I've watched him like be dirty to people. And so now he's trying to flip on me. So I'm like, no, I know you crazy enough to shoot yourself. I believe you.
Yeah.
I believe you would do something, because that just shows, your mentality. And so I text her, she calls me, she's like, where are you at? I was like, I'm in the bathroom. I'm about to take a shower or whatever. And she's like, all right, stay in the bathroom. And I'm like, all right. So I take a shower. When I get out the shower, they have a cop there. And he's like, we got a phone call, a mother wants me to come pick up her daughter and, it's not safe here. And she said, like the cop was saying what my mom had called and told him. And so I'm just like, all right. So I don't even remember grabbing stuff. I just remember like leaving with what I had on my back. I don't even remember if I had my purse. Probably not. I don't remember that. Like I remember getting in the cop car and he brought me to my sister's house, which was a little ways further down. My mom and them came pick me up and like it was just to keep me there. My mom and them came pick me up. They met up with I believe it was Officer Boyce up here who had already made connections for me to go into the women's shelter.
Oh.
So that's how I came here.
To Baton Rouge.
To Baton Rouge.
To the women's shelter.
To the women's shelter.
Wow.
So it was the cop picked me up from his house, brought me to my sister's, for my mom to pick me up there to come meet the cop up here. Because I'm pretty sure she couldn't bring me to the shelter. He had to, or he escort or something like that. And so they brought me to the women's shelter. And so I stayed 2 weeks in the women's shelter. And I remember going back one time, like this, post Christ, I remember going back and I was like, I remember this.
Because
like,
you used to serve in that community.
Yeah. And it was some outreach that I went back to and I was like, oh my gosh, my first 2 weeks in Baton Rouge, this is where I stayed.
Wow.
But yeah, so
wow.
I stayed there for 2 weeks. They had a woman that, and now I'm paranoid because by this time, like everything
And where
didn't
was
went.
Jules?
So he was with me because my mom had him. Yeah.
You and Jules.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before Shelton got out the hospital, that's what my mom had. She was like, well, let me take Jules. Well, y'all figure that out or whatever. And so it was by his second day out the hospital that's when he made that threat. And then so I'm like, my mom's like, I'm come get you or whatever. But she had Jules up here. And so when they dropped us off at the shelter, I had him with me. And it was, I remember one afternoon, we went lay down for a nap. And Jules is ADD. Like it's hard for him to take a nap. And then if he does take a little nap, when he's up, like, and wide open. And so we went lay down for a nap. Well, I just so happened to wake up and he was gone.
Wow.
And so I'm all over, looking all over.
I cannot imagine.
It felt like forever. Like just Jules, every room. Like one of the other ladies is helping me. I'm like, what is going on? Because I'm literally like, did his dad come take him? Like what? Like I'm freaking out because he's already taken him from me before. And so she goes into her room and Jules comes out like from being sleeping. And I'm like, oh no, you can't get my baby out of my room. Cause he doesn't like wander like he's not like that. And if he would have woke up and walked to her room, he would have never fell asleep.
Yeah.
My baby was just waking up. And so I called my mom. I said, Mama, come get me. I said, this woman came in my room and took my baby. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yes. And she even helped me look for him. Like, this woman's crazy. Like,
oh my gosh.
And so I'm like, oh my God. Like, she comes get me.
It's like
and
this
then
pattern that you had to go through. Like the same things happening over and over and over.
And well, in that season, I felt like there was a lot of running and hiding. Because after that, Mama's like, you can't stay here because his parents kept driving up here, banging on her house, banging around the house, like trying to, and that's something I remember as a kid having to hide, laying on the floor, being quiet because my stepdad that, raised us, beating on the, like we had to hide from him all the time. It was just like doing this all over
so
again.
much trauma and just chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. And so she sent us off to Florida. Me and my sister went with our kids and we went until like court date. Because by that time it was like, I've tried to get the restraining order. He would stalk me, have his friends stalking me no matter where I went, what I did. He would even call me, oh, so you out here eating with so-and-so, or I saw you was at this club, or I say, and it's like, get a life, And so I knew I couldn't be down there and have a life because he literally was like, you can't run from me. And so we end up going to Florida until court. And whenever I came back to court, it was for the restraining order I tried to put on him. But his lawyer had got it tossed out. He was like, oh, we already have an open case in Homa. So I don't know what she's trying to do, why she's trying to open another case up here. And now way more has transpired for because the case he was talking about in Homa was.
How old are you at this time?
Girl, I was only, I'm probably.
Jules is 4.
19, 20.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine.
Like
Like
looking back, I was like,
navigating
man,
all of that as like in your early 20s.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And for me, it's like I think the hard part was because he always like everything I tried to do, it's like he would stop me and shut me down and block me. Like with the court system with Jules and stuff like that, he literally would be like, I don't know what
Which
you,
is devastating because you're the mama.
yeah,
And so you're having to deal with, you're not having a normal like nurturing upbringing for your son. You know what
not
I
at
mean?
all.
Yeah.
No, it's like literally one of the worst things that I'm like, I never wanted my child to be raised in a broken home. Because I knew what that was like. I never wanted all that drama and because it was like my heart was to be like, no, I'm gonna be better. My family's gonna be better. And it's like this same cycle is being repeated
Wow.
before my eyes.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I'm like, so that was hard because it's like I never wanted this. Like, and I could not understand like why he was so furious or couldn't be reasonable. Like, if it's not working for us, like why can't we still just be adults and work it out for him?
Yeah.
And but it was all like all this.
It was like all this stuff happened beyond your control. And it's like I can't imagine just being the mom and it's like your feet were knocked out from under you.
Yeah.
Because then you guys went on to court, and then what happened?
Yeah. So court, I remember him walking in and he was like, I don't know what you think you're gonna do with him. Talking about my lawyer. He's like, money talk. And I was like, whatever. Like I'm so tired of being bullied by him. Like it's the mental and like well, mentally, and it was always the money thing with him. It was always like, I can't do things because I didn't have money like because when we got together, I did have a job at the hospital, but it was like he paid the bills and stuff like that. And so it was always like, I mean, just even as an upbringing, like a woman needs a man to do things, and it was just like he played into that. Like I couldn't do this. I wasn't equipped or whatever. Then we go to the,
But you're a woman chief.
yeah.
You couldn't be
You ain't know
stopped. You couldn't
ain't
be stopped.
So we go to court or whatever, and even the judge, I remember, so I was able to tell him how like I've already tried to get restraining order on him, and it didn't stick because he counteracted it with something, but he had already told me before, like, and I know small town, like I know people who got away with horrible things because they paid somebody. And I know that personally. And here he was doing it to me, paying people off. And so it was like, bro, because that's one thing. His family might be mean or whatever, but when it's time to go in on somebody, they're going to come together. They're going to come, oh, we're going to take them out. We're going to take them out. Like,
unite.
and so now they're against me, right? And so it wasn't like it was just him. It was him and his
whole
people.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the judge ended up saying that, because I had just moved up here. I wasn't established. I didn't have a car. That it was best if my son lived with his grandparents. So me and Shelton had joint custody, but his parents had provisional custody. And it was like, well, why does his parents get provisional custody and not mine? Because, I mean, like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
They had money. And so,
That's so
but it was like,
unfair.
they're known. The justice system down there is not justice. It's not.
Wow.
It really is like how much money you have. And so I remember like just that devastation. It was like,
Well, and that's like your whole life. I mean, it's like, okay, pay people off, money, have more money, win a court case. Your entire life was impacted, and Jules's life.
yeah. And it was like, like people don't stop to think about the devastation they're causing to others or what is actually like, it was already bad enough. His whole, like, he's like 4 now. His whole
4 years old.
4 years is back and forth chaos. And so it was like not even, it's just this kid being tossed back and forth. And it was like everybody loves him, but it's not stopping to see like the hurt,
There's no
that he could
stability
be
for him.
Yeah.
Routine.
Yeah.
And so his parents got provisional
Provisional
custody,
custody.
and your parents got nothing.
Nothing.
And you
Not
got
even considered.
joint custody.
Joint custody.
And so what was that dynamic like? How often could you see him? You know, how often did they have him? Like, tell me about that.
So we did have it split. They said that, because their plan was to put him in school, he had to start school at 4 years old because that made them look like more stable. And I wasn't planning on putting him in school. And so it made it
Your
seem
rights
like,
just got taken.
yeah, well, this was their argument in court. They already know what school they're going to put him in. They had plans to put him in school if they would be granted to keep him. Whereas me, I'm like, no, I'm just moving up here. I don't plan. He's 4 years old. He doesn't have to go into school. He didn't. He had a whole year he could have waited. But that was part of their, it looks like they have it together, so we're just going to let him stay here while, and that's what the judge told me, while you get stabilized. And it's like, literally, my whole life has been unstable, but okay.
Yeah.
And so, but like that was another thing, like I just did not need to hear that. So we leave, and from there, it was like,
And you felt totally capable of caring for him.
yeah, because I mean, like, that's my child. Like, I
Yeah.
would not do anything. I did not, even whenever I would go out to the clubs and stuff like that, it wasn't when he was with me. Like, when it was my visitation, no, I'm with my baby.
Yeah. And so it's just totally unfair what your rights were taken.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when
cannot
they
imagine.
said from leaving that, it was like, okay, so now he's going into school. So I only get him every other weekend.
Every other
weekend.
You
Yeah.
are the mother.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I keep going back to that because I'm like, you're the mom. And you have been pushed out of the situation
Because I didn't want the dad.
because you didn't want the dad.
Yeah.
And now your son, you see every other weekend.
Every other weekend and every other holiday. So it wasn't even which that for me, it was only an opportunity to see him because we wasn't really raised with holidays, celebrating holidays and stuff. So it wasn't a big deal about that. It was more so like, okay, this is a break from school, then I'll be able to spend time with him. And
But again, it is like, I'm like wrapping my brain around the fact that this was taken from you. Like the ability to fully mother
to nurture my child.
24/7.
Yeah.
And now you can see him every
Every
other
other
weekend, and you did nothing to deserve it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Besides saying, I don't want this abusive
besides-
relationship.
Yeah. I'm like, how are, and I know we'll get there. It's God. Like, how are you even like able to function and thrive in life today? Because the story gets better. It does. But just having that taken from you when a woman's like pride and joy is their child.
Yeah.
And then that's taken from you. That is horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It was even harder because it's like literally ingrained in you, like, this is your purpose as a woman.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then now you're not even worthy enough to do it. Like,
It's not even you're not worthy enough, but it's like you're
not worthy,
you're terrible.
not capable.
You're not capable, you're inadequate. Like the messages that communicates to a person, like internally, like I'm so sure that you've had to unwind all of those lies because you are capable.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the chief woman.
I love that.
I'm going to keep going back to that because, I mean, look at this. When I'm thinking about it right now, that like your dominance was taken from you. You were no longer able to nurture and be in charge. You were like, you lost control. But then your generational heritage, like you're in charge. And so the very thing that you would have gotten was taken. I don't know.
It is.
That's like a raw thought. It just hit me all of a
No,
sudden.
because I literally like reflect back a lot and see how there's so many things like as a child that the enemy tried to target, to take away my identity, to cause pain. It's the very places that God uses me when he's called to. And it's like, oh, it makes sense when you get that revelation. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's why I was attacked like that.
Yes.
Because it's like, this is what God was been calling me to. This is what the purpose that he placed in me.
Wow.
And so it's like, that's one of those things. It was like, no, like this is what I have in my blood to do.
Yeah.
But so it's the very area that I was attacked in, you know.
Wow.
But I'm like, there's a lot, like
I keep remembering you're the chief. Whatever is it? The chief woman? What is it? What? That's what I said last time. But it's like you're a woman chief. Well, it's like every like step of your story is like that was taken from you. You know.
Yeah.
That authority was taken from you.
Yeah.
Like you're not in charge. You know, you're worthless. You are nothing. And so you can't even be a mom.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be a wife. Like all of this stuff was taken from you. And gosh, like I can't imagine the level of disappointment, but also just confusion of what is true, what is not true. Am I really inadequate? Am I really capable? Like that whole learning process of like, how do I function in a confident way, which is so bizarre that that's what I see on you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I imagine that was a journey.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is like packing on top of the childhood abuse, like the childhood neglect and the sexual abuse and physical abuse. Like, and so this is tacking on top of it. If that wasn't enough, now it's
That
like
was your foundation.
the mental abuse being added to it. And what is it like with the whole money thing? Like how they abuse you with, you know, it's called something, but like that's what it was. Like, oh, like I needed him financially, and it's like no, That's why one of the things now, I'm like when Boosie wrote that song for me, I was like, that's my song. INDE. I was like, yes, but
Just ignore my dog.
But yeah, so that that took a turn. That helped me. It was just like piling on top, piling. And by that point, it really was just like, well, what am I good for? You know? And so in my mind, I was like, I'm going to show him. I'm going to show him I can be capable. I can do, you know, I got into school.
Show him meaning
the judge.
The judge. Okay.
Yeah, because he's the one that was like, he made the final decision. Like, you just ain't
You're
capable.
Unfit.
Like, yeah.
So let me show him that I am
unfit
fit.
because I ran away for safety. Like, to try to have a life and to live in a healthy environment.
Yes.
Like, no, that wasn't the right thing to do. So I did enroll in college and partied a lot of that because I was working full time. I was in school full time. I had to party full time because I only got my kid on the weekend. So
every other weekend.
Every other weekend.
God, it makes me,
It was so hard because it was like the hardest thing was when I would get them, it was the return trip. That was always, I would normally cry the whole way back because it was like,
I can't imagine.
just rip your heart out.
Yeah. Well, every other weekend, you know, that's so much of his life that you didn't get to witness.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
I didn't mean to make you emotional.
No, you good.
To be fair, you did know that it was coming.
Yeah, I said it. I said I'm gonna cry when I talk about my baby. But yeah, so it I remember that. It was just like I got so tired of it though. Like I got so tired of like setting myself up to be hurt. That's what it felt like. Because I knew that end trip would come and I would have to return him. And it was just like devastation all over again. And so I did drown myself in work. I drowned myself in school and like really pushed myself hard to where I ended up in the emergency room a lot of times from exhaustion.
Because you're in this moment, you're spiraling like out of control. Like life isn't, you're not able to control anything.
I'm trying to meet these standards that this judge told me that I needed to meet in order to be a good mama to get my son. Yeah, it was like trying to meet impossible standards, but still in my head, you know.
With this whole situation, and you have a son that is your son, like you birthed him.
Yeah.
He was in your body. Like I'm sorry.
It was still in all the back and forth. Like, I actually thought I was protecting him from, because like when I would see them, I'm still speaking like, hey, hugging, because
Just
I
keeping the
didn't
peace.
want him, yes. I didn't want him to feel that tension. And then it started getting to where, so I'm like pushing myself to exhaustion, trying to meet these standards and be, who this judge told me I need to be, and end up finding more drugs because, another story was,
Because it's like, I mean, your reality is so devastating. I mean, the adversity that you are going through. Like, I would expect somebody to turn to something to like numb the pain or,
because Jesus wasn't real to me,
Yeah, well, I mean,
He was,
we do
so.
what's in front of us,
Yeah. Yeah. So I really did spiral downhill with the drugs, but it wasn't like I'm trying to drown out, for me, I'm like, I'm trying to keep going. And the best way I can keep going is to not feel, to disassociate, and just do what I got to do and just grind. And so that was what I got focused on to try to accomplish what I felt like I needed to accomplish to prove that I am, enough.
That is just devastating.
Yeah. And I remember one time, like it started getting bad with the whole visitation and them, they decided because they wanted to have him still I'm not coming back, I'm not coming back to him. So he still would try to use him to like, Shelton would try to use Jules to still trying to pull on my heartstrings. So it started getting to the point where it was like, oh, well, we got something going on this holiday. And so we don't want him to come. And that's whenever it really started getting crazy. Because one time I remember, I'm never going to forget, Jules was about 5. 5, maybe 6. They had something going on, and they didn't want him to come. And he kept on like, how you gonna force my son to go? Da, 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 da. I'm like, it is my right to have him. Like, y'all have been having him. He stays down there. Mind you, it was every other weekend with me and Shelton. The grandparents had provisional custody, but he lived on the property with his family.
Yes.
So he had him all the time.
Yes, okay, yes.
And so they drove all the way up to LaPlace, well, the grandma did. Drove him up all the way to LaPlace. And I don't think I've ever heard her that mad and furious. And so she opens her, she's like, he don't want to go with you. How you going to make him go with you? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, it is my weekend. Like, what are y'all tripping on? Like, this is like, and she opens the door and she's like, tell your mama you don't want to go with her. Tell her right now. And like fussing at him. And he's standing up and he's like, he's just like crying and crying and crying and crying. And he's like, she's like pointing at him, like fussing at him, like, tell her you don't want her. Tell her you don't want her. And so he's like, Mama, I don't want to go with you. And she's like, see, slams the door, gets in the car, pulls off. And I don't have papers. Because when we did go to court, that whatever, my lawyer did disappear. Like he told me, he literally, I found out it was a few years later, like he switched offices or everything, but I had called up there like, hey, where's the paperwork? Like where did it get filed or whatever? And there was like no answer, no return call. Hey, he don't work at this office no more.
So you had like you're saying in that moment there was nothing.
There's nothing
you could do.
I couldn't call the cops because it was like, what proof did I have? My word. Well, in the court they said this. Well, where's the paperwork? Well, my lawyer never gave it to me. And so I didn't want to let them know that either. I remember that day like being so distraught. I didn't know what to do because it. Like she caused the scene.
Yeah.
So I remember going into the truck stop.
It's like, I'm sorry.
No.
I keep like trying to put myself in your shoes, which I would never be able to do.
Like sometimes I have to remember to put myself back in my shoes and I'm like, oh my gosh.
I'm thinking like, okay, a week and a half, right? Or what's the time period? Because you have a whole week every other weekend.
Every other weekend.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've been waiting
twice
for
a month.
him, and then that happens.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I could not imagine.
Yeah. I remember walking in and apologizing. So why? Because I just didn't know what to do. I walked in, I was like, I'm so sorry, like this happened. Like I'd never, because we've been meeting there for a while. And I'm like, I don't know, like I just felt like I need to go apologize. I didn't know, I can't call the cops, so at least tell them sorry that we causing a scene in a parking lot, like, you know. And I remember this was BC, so I remember like these
Before
people
Christ.
are, yes, these people are just gonna keep controlling me. Like I can't keep living like this. I can't keep, you know, I can't keep going on like this. And it I would say it was from that point is when I really was like, oh yeah, I started spiraling really bad. It was that incident that really set me off. And
I
so
guess so. I mean, that is like awful.
yeah, because it wasn't until 2 years later, because Jules was about 7 when I came to Christ. And I am still, now mind you, I was bad off, like bad. My mom and them was actually planning the intervention the night I was baptized in the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
You know, I'm minding my own business. I was minding my own business. I was like, minding my own business, getting high in the park. And the Holy Spirit was like, okay, that's enough. You ain't. And I'm like, God's real.
You're the
like
kind
God's
of person
real.
that God had
He really-
he did his own intervention
Yeah.
on you in that part.
Yeah, because I remember it was one service once upon a time. My mama drugged me to the annex, and I remember like Pasadena was preaching a message, and I was like, man, that sounds cool. Like if this Jesus person was actually real, you know, I would need something. And I remember like I accepted Christ or whatever, but it was just like, okay, what now? You know, more drugs, go hard because
Yeah.
nothing changed, you know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like 2 years later, and then after
Which
coming
it's
to
such a
Christ,
process. Like everybody has their own journey,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I'm glad God did it that way for me, I guess. Because I'd never had that 1 foot in, 1 foot out
Yeah.
kind of deal, or like checking it out. It was like,
Yeah.
no, God ain't real. Y'all weak people who got to go pray about it. Just go hit somebody, all right? Because that was my thing. I'm gonna come across your head. You ain't your mama. We gonna come on. We ain't got time for all this praying about it. Okay, like you know,
You kind of scare me. It's that woman chief.
it is because we peacekeepers but warriors.
Yeah.
So you know, it's no, you know, we'll fight. If you don't want to chill, we're gonna fight.
I really hope that I'm never on your bad side.
No, because I'm not. I say that like I am a stubborn person, but if I'm stubborn for you, you got the best person on your team.
Yeah.
'Cause, babe,
I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now it's just like I'm done with you. No, I'm like you dead to me kind of deal.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like that's something I'm working on. Because it's not okay, but you know that's
Yeah.
just how
Part of the
that's how I
journey.
am. Yeah. We
Makes
still
sense
a
to
work in
me
progress.
based on everything that you've walked through.
It's like no, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I ain't got time.
Yeah. Right.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so coming back, coming to Christ, we still with this back and forth. This is still, I can't fight nothing because like I don't have nothing. So I'm literally, they've started doing it more because this is 2 years that passed, doing it more. Oh, well, he don't want to come. They figured out, oh, let Jules call and tell her. So now we wouldn't even meet up. He would call, Mama, I'm not going this weekend. And it's like, but Jules, we got this going on and we got this going on. Yeah, but you know, I really want to do this or whatever. And I'm like, all right, man. Like, because I already know how manipulative they are and like how, because I was there, you know,
Yeah.
I know it. And so it's like, I was like, man, like they found a way to like maneuver to get what they wanted. And so I remember after I came to Christ, which was great. It's like he put me back on focus. Like, hey, look, no, we're gonna do this the right way. I remember getting connected with certain people that was like, hey, we're gonna get you in line, we're gonna get your credit right, we're gonna get your house, we're gonna, you know, I even met up with a lawyer that I completely forgot about until he reminded me the other day. And he was like, didn't we meet? And you know, I remember meeting with him and I told him, I shared with him my story, and he was fired up. He was ready to go down and, you know, it was like, I was
Fight
like,
the
do you
fight.
understand we're going to hell with water pistols? Like he was ready, but I already knew what that was like. I journeyed that for a few years and I'm like, I don't want to touch it. And I didn't know him enough to have confidence in him to be like,
Yes.
okay, yeah, he's going to win this.
Yeah.
Cause I already saw how they win.
Yes.
You know? And so I was like,
And you were, and it seems like in this whole time, you were never dirty.
no, I wasn't.
Like you kept your integrity. You never wanted Jules to like
I did want
suffer
him
on
to-
account of you.
Yeah.
you stayed honorable.
I
And
never
so,
dogged his dad. I never, even regardless of how they treated me, I never spoke bad about his dad. I always made it like, hey, it's okay. Even like the whole greeting them, like kissing the enemy, like,
yeah, yeah.
like made sure, like,
Hey!
because I mean, genuinely at the end of the day, like I knew, and it's not to excuse them or anything, but when this started, like when me and Shelton had our disagreement and we decided to split, they just lost custody. I say they because his older brother had two sons. They just lost custody of those two sons. And so now here I am trying to step away from the younger son, and they like, no, they're going to bring me through.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
That
And
makes sense. I
so
was trying
I
to figure out
knew
why
that. I knew where some of the hurt came from. I knew where some of the fight came from. But it's like I caught blows that, from somebody else that I don't know if they were dirty in court or
Yeah.
not, whatever, but I know they lost custody of them two boys. And so they fought tooth and nail to make sure I didn't even stand a chance.
Wow.
And they invested everything in it, like whatever they had to do, whoever they had to pay off, whatever,
Wow.
to where they got what they wanted.
Wow.
And so I knew that's where it came from. And it was like, I always was, even BC days before Christ, I always had a different level of understanding and empathy for people. And so regardless of how mean and ugly they were to me, I knew they had hurt. I knew what they had went
You
through.
knew
And it's like,
why.
I want to feel bad for y'all, but also in the same, like y'all, like that's not fair, But I never dogged them. I never talked bad about them. I always like put on the front in front of Jules because that's what family should be. We should stick regardless.
Yeah.
We should stick together. We should be able, and that's what I was raised into. Like everybody, it didn't matter whose child it was. You cutting up, you getting a whipping, You take care of each other. You take care of each other's kids and stuff. And so it was hard for me to try to navigate this BC days and still be a nice person, still be a good person. But it's like I had to fight to do it because I didn't want Jules to suffer more
Yes.
with the
Yes.
back and forth.
Wow. So talk to me about like, okay, you've come to Christ. Your life is changing. Like tell me about that side of things.
So that is where, for me, I was able to release a lot of it, being able to forgive fully. Because it's like I had to understand it, but I had to find a way to like smile at these people. But coming to Christ, he really, coming in, it was the whole, baptized in the Holy Spirit kind of deal. He's real, whatever. Got plugged straight into church, straight into school of ministry. He brought me back home, like I said, rehab. It was back to my family because I had went away because screw everybody. Like it was. I
Went through it.
Yeah. So he brought me back and really just learning. Like first he's real and everything, and then I did a couple semesters school of ministry. And I say that because I really, yeah. And I seen that, like looking back, I was like, oh yeah, it was rough. Probably still a little rough, but
Yeah, but you're the woman chief.
I'm a chief.
You're the chief woman.
You gotta know how to,
It makes sense who you
push
are.
through.
And by the way, I'm really not scared of you.
Like, oh, please don't be.
I'm not. I just said that.
I was like, I'm only tough because it's not safe to come to the
you're
out.
if something happens, I'm gonna find you because I feel like you'll keep us safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like
if I
I'm
were
a protector,
anyone
too.
out in the world, I would not come find me.
No.
Because I am not gonna keep us safe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we're very different.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find you.
I'm more so like, hey, something pops off, like I'm gonna hop into action and kind of make it done, and then I'll freak out later.
No. Something happens, I'm out.
You
And so I need people like you. And thank God I'm married to Chris because if something happens, I know Chris can handle it.
Yeah,
But I'm a runner. But talk to me like, catch us up to like, okay, now you've been living this life, you've been in ministry, God's transformed you in a lot of ways. Obviously, you're still a work under construction, but Jules is 19. And so like, fast forward for us just a little bit to talk about the journey. Because when I met you, I knew Jules, but I had no idea that the custody situation was what it was.
Yeah.
because you always had him with you. The older he got, or I saw him all the time at the Dream Center.
Yeah.
And I just never knew what you were going through.
Yeah.
And I would have never even thought to think that because of how strong you are as a person.
Yeah. And I think like being able to be a part of the Dream Center and like just loving on those kids, that's really how like the Lord helped me a lot.
Which
grow
for
with
those that don't know, the Dream Center is our inner city campus in
Yeah.
North Baton Rouge. So
Yeah.
you, for many years, you served there and
Yeah.
you got to help take care of all those kids that didn't have anybody.
Yeah, got to show up to the games, and that's why I tell them all the time, don't invite me if you don't want me to come, because I'm coming.
I'm coming.
Like I will be the one.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you
I'm
know,
gonna make a
so-
sign and
Yeah,
hold
I'm
it
gonna
up.
be there. I'm gonna have the jug with the nuts in it, shaking it at the game. Like, come on now, be loud and
Yeah.
shit. But yeah, so that really helped me there. And I do know when Jules got about 15, he did stop coming around as much because, you know, they started dingling more things in front of him. I say it's material because he had a truck. And so it was like, oh, you can't drive to your mom. Or if you go to your mom's, you can't drive your truck. And so he's like, oh, well, I want to be my truck, you know. 16, then it was like, oh, he got his license. So, oh, yeah, well, you ain't driving that truck up there, you know. And so really from 16 to 18, 16 to 18, because when I traded my Camaro in was the last time again, he was 15. He was so mad. So 16 to 18, that's last 2 years, like it was like him being young all over again and with that strained relationship because like with when he was with his grandparents, they didn't let me know what was going on with him in school. Like, I think I may have been invited to 2 award ceremonies, but like they would not let me know. And they even told teachers and stuff like, hey, she can't check him out. She can't, which was a lie, but I couldn't fight it, you know?
Oh, Manda.
And so going back to 16, it felt like that again, but they're using a dang on truck to keep him away, you know?
Just another,
It was like one thing after
you
another.
You smile through stuff. I'm like, you're so... I mean, I don't know. Look at you. Like God's done so much in your life.
He has. He really does. He really has. And that's what seeing like along the way. I know he told me at one of those times meeting up in La Paz. He told me he was like, trust me with him, and because it was so I couldn't keep going through the hurt and letting them, you know. I was like a yo-yo with them. He was like, I got my baby, and then they were trying to hurt me with him or whatever. And he told me like, trust me with him. And so I was like, all right, I don't know what that means. But like in my head, I was like, okay, when he's 18, like, well, first it was like, okay, when he turns 12, because at 12, you can decide, you know, where you want to go. Well, he wanted to move in with his dad at 12. And he was like, I'm a man, I can be with my dad, you know, and I was like, they was just wanting him to call to make sure I wasn't taking him to court. And I'm like, no, like, I get it. No, you are a boy. Go, you know, it's fine. And honestly, our relationship got a bit better because his stepmom witnessed all this. And so she was one that was like, nope, when Jules moved in with them, I knew about every football game, every ceremony, she made sure that I knew what was going on with my baby.
So the game changed when she got in your life.
Yes. And it was
amazing.
so our relationship was able to get stronger. Like I was able to spend more. It took a lot of gas money, but I was still like, nope, you let me know I'm coming. Like, you know?
Yeah.
And so when he was 15, that's whenever it was like, okay, some more, well, 16, it was, okay, some more separation. And so it was kind of hard. I was like, just make it till he's 18, man, make it till he's 18. But being able to just push through along the way, God showing me these little God winks, like, hey, I'm praying for him, making sure like his heart, regardless of what's happening, his heart's not getting hardened by all this. Like, I know he still has some healing that he would need because our relationship was strained. And so like every child or all of it, like we need our mom and dad, but you know, I know he heard things about me or what could have happened, but it's all like their perspective of it. And a few times he's asked me like, hey, why this happened like this, or why this happened like this, or my dad told me this. And I shared with him a few times until he was like, oh, I don't want to hear no more. And I'm like, okay, you know.
You're so respectful and honoring.
Because I'm like, I really believe like the truth comes out. Like the truth really does come out. And so I never want it to be that, oh yeah, well, all these years, like I bashed his dad or bashed their family or because I'm like, no, they're to me, they were evil. They were hurtful. I do know, this is post Christ Manda, I do know they were hurting.
Yeah.
And so like hurting people hurt people, but like walking through that, I honestly don't know how, well, before Christ, it was more drugs. After Christ, it was a lot of tears and just trusting God and waiting for him to give me something to
Yeah.
show me like, no, I have him. I have him. And there's things that he done that Jules was able to, like he's been in wrecks and stuff like that. And it was just like, nope, he's good. He's protected. He's covered. I remember for his graduation, watching everybody walk out. You know, they had this gentleman that walked up to him and hugged him, told him something. And it just makes my heart so happy. Whenever we were walking out, his dad was like, who was that guy that walked up to you? And he was like, what guy? He was like, the older black gentleman. He had the suit on. What he's told you. And he was like, oh, he was just telling me congratulations, you know, and he's proud of me. And he was like, his dad was like, okay, well, who was that? And he was like, oh, that was the janitor. And to me, I was like,
My baby. Oh.
I felt like that was a guy because, okay, Jules is Mr. Cool Guy, right? He got all these friends and Mr. Popular, and you would think like, you know, he was a bully or because people look at him, they're like, oh, he's big, like, you know, he is, but
he's a big boy.
He is a protector too. He didn't do well in football on defense. He worked better on offense, even though they played him on both. But yeah, it was like things like that. God would let me see how he is with his friends, like how like his heart.
Yeah.
God made sure I took note of those things for him to show me like, no, you trust me with him. You trust me with him. When in my head, I kept thinking, okay, when he makes 18, that's it. We ain't got to deal with this no more, you know? And I can say after he made 18, we did our relationship he was driving up here more often. Every time he would get up, because as soon as he made 18 he went to work, he on the boats with his dad. And but every time he was off, he's driving up here and seeing me, and I'm just like, yes. And then he started talking about, hey mama, I'm looking for a house. And I'm like, okay, because I'm like,
And this is recent.
yes.
He's looking to buy his own house.
And so I'm like, oh, you know, I got a bedroom up here. If you want to come move in, why you looking, you know, because his dad had moved to Mississippi. He wanted him to move with him. And he was like, no. So he stayed down here because he had his girlfriend, his friends and everything. And I'm like, well, if, you know, you need a place to stay, you know, and he's like, no, I don't need a place to stay. I just want my own place. And I'm like, all right, well, let's find you something. And he's like, I'll move to Santa Monica because they country, because, you know, to him, I'm city. But so I was like, okay, you need me to be looking around. And he was like, well, just keep your eyes open, you know. Well, he played around a little bit with trying to find something, but he really just couldn't get financed for anything. So he bought his four-wheeler, he bought his truck, nice truck. And I'm like, big boy purchases. The boy make more money than me. But so then he ends up calling me what it was a couple months ago. He called me and told me that he was in contract on a house. He was like, mama, don't be mad. And I'm like, please don't let Nevaeh be pregnant. Please don't let Nevaeh be pregnant.
I'm not ready to be a grandma.
Yes. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I like it too. His girlfriend's name is Nevaeh, which is heaven backwards. And I'm like, she really is like, she loves him. She really does. And so I'm just like, okay, God, wait, like, let's keep her right. Pray for her.
Yeah.
I pray for her to like be a great woman for my baby. But so he calls me, tells me he's in contract, and I was just like, okay, so why would I be upset? And he's like, well, it's in Mississippi. And I'm like,
all this time you've waited.
I'm like, I've been waiting. So I did get disappointed. I was like, God, I thought like our relationship would be better. He would move closer. And like, I got really upset about it. I still get upset about it.
Yeah.
But it was
Rightfully
like,
so.
God never told me that, you know, he just told me to trust him with Jules. And I set that up to say like, oh, once he makes 18, you know, we don't have to, you know, and so, but I'm like, I'm conflicted because it's like, oh, I'm so proud of him. Like he's 19 years old and he just bought his first house, brand new, you know, brand new house.
Look at him.
And I was like, he's doing so good. He's so smart. And this is not to like, not in a biased way.
Oh, no.
Like, this is my child. Yes. He does have good genes. I'm like, but I feel like he's been able to succeed even with all the back and forth and all the hardship and all the things.
Well, it's
and
like
I was like,
God's promise of I've got him.
yes,
Trust me.
Like, trust me. Because it's like, you can do far more than what we can, you know? And so it's things like, I'm like 19. I'm like, wow, I literally just broke generational curses when I purchased my first home 3 years ago
And now your
as a
son.
woman without a man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
in my family.
Yeah.
You know, me and my sister, we're like, we don't have it like any of our cousins or nieces or no, they
Yes.
still, it's just like you get stuff passed down to you or you
Wow.
marry into somebody and it's like, no, we do this on our own.
It's so crazy how you have this experience with God and now it's like you're going through all these current things that are still disappointing, but having God with you has made all the difference. I remember when I was first, coming to know Jesus, I had like this moment where God took me back to like all of the hardest moments in my life and showed me himself like in the front seat of the
Yes.
car or like, holding my hand as I'm walking somewhere,
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, what's crazy is he was there all along,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what's different is that now you know that he's there.
Yeah.
And that's what gives you the
Yeah.
strength to be the chief woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, like being able, it becomes easier to trust God when you can
Yes.
look back and see. Like even now, like I was like, oh man, no, I'm disappointed in God. But I'm like, I'm disappointed in him for no reason because he didn't tell me
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like he's been covering my child. He's been protecting my child. Like
Yes.
he's through all of this. Like
Yes.
he's kept it. And I'm like, dude, my baby's 19. And like to see where he's at, like,
Yes.
I'm like, thank you, God. Like,
Yes.
first of all, because the person I was and the life I lived, yeah, even though I was trying to numb and drown out things and I come from abuse, I still made a lot of bad decisions. I've done a lot
Yes.
of bad things to people.
Yes.
And it's just like, God, I'm so thankful because he really does. He just calls us to like be obedient and surrender to him. And he really does like all this other stuff that we've done and we've been a part of. I'm like, yeah, there's some consequences that we have to face and we have to live with and deal
Because
with.
you still made some decisions that have consequences.
Yes.
So you have to deal with those.
Yes.
But there's also this side of redemption that God does for us whenever we come to him.
Yeah.
And that must be what I saw on you from the very beginning is that God had redeemed you and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And I'm like, with him, I feel like a lot of it because, like, as a mother, you want best for your kids. You want, and so if God blesses my son because of my obedience, not necessarily there's things that happen to me, even though he is blessed me, but I'm saying, like, I would be so content to see my son reap all the blessings because of the tears I've cried and because of my obedience,
Which is true love
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Well, I love that because I feel like your story is so inspiring because if anybody in the world had a reason to fight back, it would be you.
Yeah.
But you like let God fight for you.
Yeah.
And what that did was it kept you with integrity and honor. And now you're able to see with a perspective that no one else can see of Jules.
Yeah.
Like you're seeing him as, the one that's broken curses in your
Yeah.
generations.
Yeah.
But it's because you let God fight those battles, even when you didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
It's great, like, to speak that on God, like how good he is. Like he, even though I had been hurt and abused, like he's come through as a protector and a defender. And I'm like, these cycles that literally have continued to come after me. That's one thing I learned. I don't need to fight for myself. I don't need to defend my name. Even though there was a few times that I'm just like, take you in the street right now. You want me to call somebody, let you know you don't know me, like,
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I don't even have to do that. I don't have to be that way. Like, there's two ways to like help people grow. I mean, there's two ways that you connect with people and that I've experienced. And one, it was from like, hey, I'm gonna dominate you and break you to get you to do what I want you to do, or love someone till they blossom. That's the two that I've experienced. And with Christ, of course, it's been that love you to blossom kind of deal. And it's like,
the word says it's the kindness of God that leads us to repentance.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
you've witnessed his kindness and his like affection for you.
yeah,
Which is something that you never experienced prior. All of your relationships before that were not
Abusive.
like that. Yeah, yeah.
And it was like always trying to break break you into submission.
Yes.
Like break you, put fear
But
in
then
you.
the love of God could cause
And he's
you
like,
to submit.
yeah,
You've submitted,
willingly.
Jules.
Like,
Now,
willing.
and you've literally like entrusted God
Yeah.
with Jules.
Yeah.
And look what he has done in
Yeah.
your life.
And I'm like, that for a mother is like the best thing. Even though he's not, he's an hour and 40 minutes away, 43 minutes away. It's just like, no, man, like God is good. I still trust him. Like, I'm like, even if one day in the far future, my grandbabies are going to have a great dad, like
Oh,
that he like, cause he really is good. And I'm like, God, I'm trusting you with all of him.
yeah.
Like all of him.
Wow.
You know?
That takes so much courage and so much vulnerability to entrust, your son
Yeah.
like that. But I just want you to know I am so inspired by you. I'm so in awe of your strength and just grateful that you would be honored. Like, I'm honored that you would sit down with me and share your story. You're like my hero. Like, I'm humbled by your story. And the strength that God has placed inside of you to walk through
Yeah.
what you've walked through.
Yeah.
In the most honorable way, the adversity you've been through. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really an honor that you would come on our podcast and share. But I guess as we go ahead and close, I feel like I could talk to you for like hours. I don't
There's
know.
a lot of stories. Some are not as emotional, but they're
I
like,
know. Well, I'm like, gosh, we got to do like a part 2.
Yeah.
We got to bring you back and hear more.
some other crazy. There's
Yeah,
some crazy.
I feel like
You wanna hear some crazy stories.
Yeah, I want to hear your crazy stories. But
Yeah.
for now, I just want to let you know how much I love you. I'm just grateful for who you are and what value that you bring to me and those around us. I've watched you serve in the Dream Center and take care of those kids.
Yeah.
And I've watched you be somebody for them that you weren't able to be for Jules because that was stripped from you.
Yep.
And so the fact that you then took that love and placed it in somebody else who needed it,
Yeah.
I've watched you do that. And it's been unbelievable to see how many kids that you have nurtured and loved. And I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've watched you do that. And so it's
Like,
unreal.
He tells us like our greatest ministry is going to come from our deepest pain. And so I literally got to live that. Instead of letting bitterness and anger and resentment grow, I was still able to love. It's not where I wanted to love, but I loved so many more from that pain.
Yes.
Like I let that pain be passion
Yes.
and lead me. And
Good.
but it's like, no, he tells us that. And it's like, it's hard in it, but it's like looking back, it's like, no, he's good because there's things that we go through, that life is tough,
Yeah, life is tough.
but it's like how we can let him use it. And it's not always how we want it to look or what we want it to look like.
Yes.
But it is so much better and so much
Every
more
time.
effective.
Every time.
Like, you know how many people I got to love on, I
It's
want
so
my
true.
baby, but it really was like letting him like,
Yeah.
Lord, I'm hurting here.
Yes.
And he's like, okay, well, let me feel it.
Well, when I was watching you during that season, I had no idea what you were going through. And you always inspired me by how you love those kids.
It's great. A lot of people, my biggest compliment now is that people, if I say something about my past, they're like, what?
Really?
That's
That's how
someone, I
I was.
won't mention their name, but was like, I thought you was a goody goody. I'm like, yes, I was. Yes, I was.
Keep on believing
But-
that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, God is amazing.
Yeah.
Your story builds my faith and it gives me hope
Mm.
in times when, it seems impossible or there's adversity or things are taken from me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can think back at your story and go, God is so good though.
Yeah.
Like he
Yeah.
will return it all and
will.
he'll redeem it all.
Yep.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Well,
Thank
let's
you
go
for-
ahead and land the plane.
Yeah.
And, this is the part where Chris doesn't like to do it. So thank God he's not here because he doesn't have to do it right now. But like we always say on this podcast, life can be tough, but God is still so good.